You're watching the Clean Commercial Transportation Update. I'm Bill Van Amburg.
And I'm Alycia Gilde.
The technology to reach 100% zero emissions in urban applications by 2030 is here now. But what will it take to do that, and what will it take for the world to meet its climate needs before it's too late?
Each month on CCTU, we're investigating different areas of the industry on our roadmap to zero emissions.
Along our roadmap, we're taking a look at scaling up production, key partnerships, smart policies, infrastructure, innovative technologies, and equity for the clean transportation industry.
You won't want to miss our 30-minute live CCTU broadcast every month at calstart.org/CCT update.
Make sure you register on our website and keep track of us by following us on Twitter at CalStart.
And we'll CCTU soon.
Well, we'll CCTU right away. Hello, everyone. Great to be back. And who were those people? I really loved their style. Great to be back for CCTU for our live August edition of the Clean Commercial Transportation Update. Boy, is summer flying by. I'm Bill Van Amburg, and I'm joined as always by my great partner and colleague, Alycia Gilde. Welcome, Alycia.
Happy Friday, Bill. It is great to be back here with you and all of our friends at CCTU. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Hoping you're having a wonderful summer. We have an awesome 30-minute program lineup for you, and it wouldn't be possible without our fantastic team. We have today Sam Trotton with Drop Media, who's running all of our controls. Casey Okazaki is our wonderful producer. We have Lindsay Olson, who made all of our fantastic graphics. Whitley Porter, as usual, is making sure we look great. And of course, we have Megan Fine, who is keeping us connected to our members and all of our friends with the industry.
Well, you know, we have all this effort because it's so important what we're talking about. We're continuing our trek in this episode today along the roadmap to zero emissions that we've been talking about as we explore what it will take to reach 100% zero emissions in urban applications and increasingly in all applications by 2030. And we talk about all of the milestones it's going to take to reach that today. We're going to be talking with some great guests about smart policies and regulations, scaling production, and equity. And our first guests are going to be Peter Christensen, Chief for the Innovative Strategies Branch of the California Air Resources Board, and also our own Tarah Campi. Tarah is our Deputy Director at CalStart for the whole HVIP program, a big California incentive program, which most people know about, but we'll really talk about expansion there.
That's right. And next, Bill, we will take everyone on a tour of the New York City Department of Sanitation. We're going to be going live to Brooklyn, New York, where they're going to show us their electric refuse truck. And of course, we're going to be speaking with Deputy Commissioner Rocco DiRico and Deputy Director Spiro Kattan. And this will be hitting on the 2 points of innovative technologies and infrastructure. And then for our final segment, we're going to be going live to the Electric Island in Portland, Oregon, where we're going to be hitting on infrastructure and key partnerships. And we'll be talking with Jonathan Lane, who is the charging consultant for Daimler Truck North America, as well as our friend Rustam, who is the working for Portland General Electric. And he's going to tell us all about this first of its kind public charging station for Class 8 battery electric trucks. This is really exciting lineup, Bill.
It really is exciting, and Rustam was so foundational in that. Well, we got a great lineup, but as always, let's start off with a poll today. And Sam, if we can go to that poll, let's walk through some questions for our audience today.
Great. So as we want to be bringing folks more on tours live to check out cool sites such as the one we went to in New York to check out the electric refuse truck, and of course today, the Electric Island. We want to hear from you. What would you like to see? What virtual tour can we bring you on? Would you like to see delivery and drayage trucks? How about school or transit buses? How about a manufacturing site? And then lastly, how about an infrastructure site? Let us know what you would like to see, and we're going to make sure we make it happen.
Well, those are all such good choices. And I think a lot of people like to see the vehicles in action. But I have to admit, I'd love to get to a manufacturing site and see people actually putting these vehicles and technologies together.
I agree. All right. Well, Whitley and Sam, let's see what we see here. All right. Okay. Let's just see. It looks like there's a slight tie between delivery and drayage truck and infrastructure site. following behind that school and transit bus and a manufacturing site. All right, well, folks, thank you so much. Great feedback. We're going to make it happen.
All
Over
right.
to you, Bill, and our wonderful news lineup that you're going to share with us.
Well, that's great. And we're going to do a lot of that today, but you're right. Let's start with the news. And Sam, let's go to that first slide because it's been a troubling period of time when it comes to the reports we're getting on climate change. First, last couple of weeks, we had the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, newest sobering report that our temperature rise is actually going faster than we thought. We're going to shoot through 1.5 degrees C sometime after 2030 on our current trajectory. Not only that, July was the hottest month on record in ever recorded history, and August is shaping up to be almost just as hot. But next slide. And that is that we really have the opportunity to change this, but we've got to take action. There's a number of studies that are out right now showing that climate change can not only be stopped and arrested, but reversed. But we really need to start acting on getting to net zero, which is really what a lot of people are calling for as soon as possible. 2040 is certainly where most people's targets are aimed right now. There's also a number of supercomputers that are running scenarios, and there's multiple ways for us to actually get not just a net zero, but to start to reverse climate change. But what we have to do is to take action, and we really have to avoid political obstruction. That was one of the biggest cautions called out in those reports. There is some movement on that front. In Washington, D.C., on the next slide, we actually had some celebration of the major infrastructure bill moving through the Senate. It is now on the House side now, and what you're seeing is kind of a great picture, historic really, of three cabinet-level Biden administration officers who had just taken a ride in a Peterbilt, a Kenworth Class 8 fuel cell-powered tractor. And they were celebrating the Infrastructure Act and what it might bring for infrastructure for charging and refueling sites and funding for that. Those three advisors are Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo, National Climate Advisor Janet McCabe, and Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm, not all of whom fit in the cab of that truck, but all of whom were right out in front. Daimler is making some real investments. If we look at our next slide, in changing over their entire supply chain. So they've announced the e-Actros trucks in Europe. We've seen what they've done with the e-Cascadia, which is starting to come to market next year in the United States. But they're now starting to switch over their supply chain and their manufacturing sites to electrified components. In fact, they're transforming 3 of their production facilities from combustion tech to components for zero emissions, including moving a transmission plant into an electric drive component and fuel cell center, turning an axle plant into an electric drive system plant, and transforming an engine plant over to batteries and high voltage systems. That's quite a substantial transformation that they're proposing. Some other interesting partnerships to announce on our next slide. eNow, which has been really leading the way in electrified systems for refrigerated trailers, has formed a new partnership with XL Fleet. They'll be able to take batteries and power electronics from XL Fleet and incorporate them into their first 1,000 units. Now, these are full-size trailers towed by a Class 8 truck, electrified. eNow has been working with Wabash and also with Carrier to be able to make those systems. So this is an exciting next step forward. You can have electrified trucks with a trailer refrigeration fully electrified as well. Another partnership that's real exciting, we teased it on our last broadcast, but it's now out in public. Proterra has partnered with Roush on the battery packs and systems for their Class 6, their F650 Ford electrified truck. And their fleet partner is going to be Penske Fleet Systems. This is a pretty exciting partnership for that group. They're going to be partnering not only on the vehicles and the components for them, but building out an ecosystem for the customer set. Hyundai, in our next slide, is bringing 30 fuel cell trucks to California. We've been talking about the trucks that they've launched and are testing in Switzerland right now. But by 2023, they should have 30 of them in 2 separate projects in the state of California, and really trying to push the fuel cell long haul, if you will, use of these vehicles. Already in Switzerland, they've got well over 500,000 miles of driving in real world conditions. And speaking of partnerships on the fuel cell and hydrogen front, Chevron, a traditional player in the fossil fuel world, and Cummins have formed an alliance around hydrogen and other technologies that are alternative fuels. They really want to focus on several areas, but mainly around how to produce renewable hydrogen and to distribute it, possibly even using Cummins technology to produce that hydrogen. So some interesting shifts in the world, and boy, do we have to continue to move faster, Alycia.
Oh, that's right. Well, that was an excellent rundown. So much great activity in our industry. And Bill, I'm really excited about this next segment because we're going to bring on a couple of really good friends of ours that we're working really hard with to advance clean vehicle technologies in California. So next, we're going to bring on Peter Christensen, who is the Innovative Strategies Branch Chief at the California Air Resources Board, along with CalStart's Deputy Director, Tarah Campi, who is CalStart's Deputy Director and Manager of HVIP. And what we're going to get an update on from these two is the hybrid and zero emission truck and bus voucher incentive project. Recently opened up the gates to allow folks to apply for voucher incentives. And I think there's been some really good success. So how about I start off with Tarah. Tarah, go ahead and share with us, how did the openings go recently?
Great. Thank you so much, Alycia. It's great to be here. So HVIP reopened to new voucher requests for the first time in 18 months. Back in June, and funds were released in 2 waves. All told, we saw 1,250 voucher requests for over $171 million, including some exciting movement in key segments, over 50 million each in Class 8 tractors and in school buses, as well as almost 30 million in transit buses. So in both the August and the June waves, there was really unprecedented demand. Funds were requested fully early in the very first day each wave. It's also important to point out that there was there was a 2-month pause between the waves. However, requests for drayage vehicles and for all public entities continued to come in during the pause. There was no pause on those requests. So we did see significant demand throughout the summer. And we look forward to increasing funds coming down soon to continue to meet this exciting industry demand, which Peter Christensen will talk more about.
Great. Thank you so much, Tarah. And you know, it is exciting. And I think it's doubly exciting with what the governor has done and the legislature to put so much money in here. So let's bring in Peter Christensen from the California Air Resources Board. And first, Peter, I have to say congratulations to you on your promotion and to be branch chief. You've done such a fantastic job over the years. It's been a pleasure to work with you. When you look at these numbers, and one of the things Tarah pointed out, 50 million for drayage trucks, about 314 rough vouchers, but almost a third, almost 400 trucks were Class 8, not all obviously drayage. That's astounding. What does this tell you about what's going on in the market?
Yeah, Bill, thanks for having me today. And I think that simply put, what it says is that the zero emission truck and bus market is stronger than it's ever been in California and even beyond. I think behind the numbers that Tarah outlined there, it's really important to recognize that the types of vehicles now are much more diverse than we've seen in the past. Like you said, Class 8 zero emission trucks, large transit buses. We're seeing battery electric and fuel cell technologies in the market. So it's a really exciting time. If you look at HVIP historically overall, over 8,000 clean trucks and buses supported, well over 220 million miles, clean miles driven in California, and over 12,000 jobs supported too. So there's a lot of activity, there's a lot of innovation, and there's a lot of benefits coming from the vehicles that HVIP is supporting. And importantly, that does help us to support the vision, the clean air and zero emission vision that's outlined in Governor Newsom's executive order, not to mention helping us along the path of one of the first steps in achieving that vision, which is the Project 800 initiative that we launched back in January, which is our initiative to generate 800 zero emission, the first 800 zero emission drayage truck orders in this calendar year by December 31st of this year.
Oh, well, Peter, that is fantastic. And really, HVIP has become a model for how to advance vehicle technologies, how to use incentives to really drive the market, and just so much progress and demand that we're seeing. So Project 800 is a great way to see how the drayage market is progressing. Tell us how CARB is looking at supporting small fleets. How are we going to help our small fleets advance and adopt zero-emission vehicle technologies?
Great question, Alycia. Small fleets are really a focus in our thinking about how we can adjust our policies moving forward. We've reached a lot of fleets in California. We recognize, and we've talked to a lot of small fleets about some of the unique barriers that they're facing. So you're going to see this year, the policy recommendations that we bring forward to our board are going to reflect some of those learnings and some adjustments both in the traditional HVIP program as well as something I'm really excited about, which is a new incentive model that builds on what we've learned in HVIP, but is really geared toward the needs of small fleets. It reflects what we've heard from the fleets, and it reflects what we're seeing in the marketplace, which is really some exciting innovation in how those trucks can be put in the hands of small fleets. So we have a name for this. You're going to see it in the proposed funding plan. It's our Innovative Small E-Fleets Project. It's a pilot project that's intended to give us some learnings and some lessons that we can then fold into HVIP over time. But like I said, it's really geared toward helping small fleets. It includes innovative financing. It includes opportunities for small fleets to get experience with zero-emission trucks, perhaps even without having to make the commitment to purchase initially, using models like leasing, truck as a service, and some of those kinds of opportunities that we're seeing out there. So really interesting and exciting times for fleets across the board in California right now.
Hey, Peter, it's great news on to kind of this really pushing innovation to how do we scale to that next level? Real quick, we only have about 15 seconds. Can you just give us a thumbnail sketch? What's coming next in terms of dollars and timing in HVIP?
You bet. So first up, we have a contingency initial allocation of $60 million coming to HVIP. I know that HVIP was very successful in these first two waves, and some folks weren't able to get funding. So there is a $60 million allocation that's coming very soon. Beyond that, the funding plan that we take to our board this November includes over $500 million for HVIP next year, including a focus on drayage, public transit, and school buses. Not to mention over $150 million for the HVIP Off-Road Companion, which is the core program, as well as continuing support for our demonstrations and pilot projects. Altogether, this funding plan represents over $1.5 billion in investments in California that are going to help us to advance clean transportation and deliver benefits, especially in those communities that are most impacted by air pollution.
You are a bringer of good news, Peter. Thank you very much.
Yes, you are. Many thanks, Peter, for your wonderful leadership. And Tarah, keep up the great work. Thanks for joining us, you two. Great to have you on. Well,
Thank you.
On to our next, thank you. On to our next segment, and just want to say and give a big call out to my friends Spiro and Rocco DiRico. Last week, I joined Bill live from Brooklyn, New York, to meet up with my dear friends at the New York City Department of Sanitation.
Well, we're really excited today to be able to take advantage of the fact that Alycia is on the East Coast, and while she was there, she was able to arrange this bi-coastal meeting for us with the Department of Sanitation New York, who's on the leading edge of testing out an electric refuse truck, among other things that they do. Take it away, Alycia.
Oh, Bill, well, great to be here with a dear friend, our friend, Deputy Commissioner of New York Department of Sanitation for Vehicle Operations. And Rocky's going to tell us all about their first all-electric Mack refuse truck that they've had in operations how long?
Since November of 2020, and obviously we've gone through quite a bit with it. We've done a lot of testing, and I'll talk a little bit more about it as we move along.
Well,
All
Alycia, can we walk around it with you and Rocky and see some of the details of this great-looking machine?
So first thing I should say is it's the first of its kind. It's a Mack truck, low entry, with a high body, 25 yard. Being the first makes us very proud, of course. And it's been in service, as I said earlier, since November. It's been through the rigors of the city. performing flawlessly. Charge time is pretty good, 4 hours max. We'd like to get it down to 2 at some point, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later on as well. So with that, maybe we can get around the back of the truck and talk a little bit more about the body functions and the charge.
Yeah. Hey, Rocky, as you and Alycia are walking back there, so all the hydraulics are being driven by electric power?
Not yet, Bill. Not yet. The next not the next generation. Next generation will be 7 more trucks. Those trucks will plow. The generation following that, we hope the body will be electrified entirely. But at this point, the hydraulics are, there's an electric motor that pushes the hydraulics.
All right, so tell us about this charger. So this is a charge point charger?
Yeah, it's actually our first DC fast charger. Right now we operate a network of 103 level 2 EV chargers, it's AC chargers. This is our first DC fast charger. And so we have 104 EV chargers. And so we just added this to our portfolio of chargers. And what's unique about it, it puts out 50 kilowatts of power, which will enable us to charge the truck in just under 4 hours, basically.
Here, next to the charger.
So it's a 50 kilowatt charger, it's a charge point charger. All our EV chargers right now are from Charge Point, and they're on one network, which means we go to one dashboard to download all the metrics and all the data that we need from all our EVSEs, basically. So 50 kilowatts, less than 4 hours. If this is down at a 0 state of charge, which is very rare, it will only take 4 hours to charge it, basically. On average, we only use close to half of this the battery capacity. So basically 2 hours time we're able to charge the truck up, which is fabulous for us, basically.
Bill, I don't know if you're catching this, but what they're saying is they created essentially white noise so that folks can actually hear the vehicle.
Yeah, I hear nothing here. It is so quiet. It's just amazing.
Okay, I'm going to get on the other side. All right, Bill, I'm trying to give you the full experience as I'm having.
It is very cool, but it is so different not to hear a roar every time you launch off from a stop. It's just amazing.
But what a great experience. I feel so lucky to have had this ride with you, Chris. Thank you so much for bringing CCTU on a journey, experiencing sanitation zero emission truck, refuse truck.
And I feel so lucky that I'm sitting in Southern California riding in a truck in Brooklyn. This is pretty cool. Yeah, thank you. That was fun, Alycia. It was so fun to go back and forth with you on that when you were there.
Oh, it was so fun. I really enjoyed it. I know you could see that I was getting a kick out of it. And not to mention, it was like 100 degrees there while we were doing it. So many thanks to our wonderful DSNY team. You guys are the best. Well, we're running out of time here, and we have a fabulous segment to go to next, Bill. And we are going live to the Electric Island in Portland, Oregon. And we are joined by our friend Jonathan Yan, who is the Charging Infrastructure Consulting Analyst for Daimler Trucks North America, and Rustam Kocher, who is the Transportation Electrification Manager for Portland General Electric. Rustam, I got it right there. We are featuring their partnership in the Pacific Northwest called the Electric Island. And let's go ahead and go live to Rustam. Rustam, tell us all about this project. How did it come together and how did you make it happen?
It was just a sketch on a napkin. We were sitting around trying to think about what public charging for trucks may or may not look like. And we reached out to our local utility. I was actually sitting on the Daimler truck side of things at the time. We reached out to Portland General Electric and said, how could we work together to make this happen? They were kind enough to offer 50% cost share on the site. And we spent about a year designing it and figuring out how it would work. In that process, I actually ended up on the other side of the fence over at PGE. And we made it happen. It was going to be open for the EVS 33 event that was going to be held in Portland, Oregon. That was canceled due to COVID, unfortunately, but we kicked it back off in October of 2020 and opened it in May.
Well, that's so fantastic. And you're right. Rustam, you really need to start with contacting your utility and getting this into the planning and lead cycle. Let's go out and see what you accomplished. And Jonathan, Yan, if you can turn your camera on, and if we can join you out there on the site, there you are. Can you walk us through? Let's see what you've got on site. Tell us a little about the truck technology you have on site. And this is a public access station, I believe.
Yeah, you're right there. Yeah, so let me turn my camera around here. Yep, so here I am on Electric Island. So give you a quick walkthrough of it right now. So in the middle here, this is where all the chargers and trucks would charge. We have a variety of different chargers here, 8 different models at the moment, and growing as well. So this used to be an abandoned fast food restaurant. It used to sit right there. So we thought, what better use of it than turn it into a public charging site. So on this left-hand side right there in the fenced area, that's where all of the AC to DC power electronics equipment are installed. So that does all the conversion. We call that area the power garden. So that's a good nickname for that. All of these charging islands you see are pull through in design. So it makes it easy for traffic flow. As you see there, we have another customer pulling up just to charge. And this site, you're able to charge a truck with a trailer attached. So that was the primary goal and intention, was to make it accessible for the heavy duty and the commercial users. And on that area over there in that empty patch, we're in the planning stage of building a sort of like a classroom, showroom building for customers, and more importantly, public restrooms for when people are charging at the site.
All right, Jonathan, that's a super walkthrough there, and I see what looks like an eCascadia and an EM2 among others. That's fantastic just to see that in these big lanes.
Yeah, you're right there. So this is our eCascadia. Series production will begin in middle to late 2022. Same with the EM2 here. I encourage everyone to, if they are interested in more information about it, check out the Daimler Trucks website. And the targeted range for now is 250 miles under the right conditions, fully loaded. So look for these trucks out towards the end of next year.
That's great. Thank you so much, Jonathan. So wonderful to have you, and live from Portland at the Electric Island. Well, maybe we'll have time for one more question here, and quick, my friend Rustam. You know, I love infrastructure. As an infrastructure lead for CalSTART, tell us about the infrastructure we're seeing at the site, and maybe some of the innovative technologies that you're integrating to really demonstrate this first of its kind public charging station that can be used by multiple users.
Well, as you say, it's the first of its kind. It's the first dot on the map for the West Coast Clean Transit Corridor. That was it was that report that was released last June. We encourage our other utilities that were involved with WCC-TCI to also reconvene and to make those other locations that were located, that were defined, and get more charging sites like this built. And I'm actually in the process of reconvening that band and getting everyone to pick their instruments back up and get ready to play. And look for something more from us later in the year here as we get closer to that. The site itself has about 5 megawatts of capacity. Right now we have 1.1 installed because that's the current load of all the chargers, but it will be able to be connected up very quickly. The site is built with a great deal of flexibility in mind. So not only is it flexible from a power up standpoint, the transformers can be switched out quickly, but also the chargers can be changed out quickly. We have the site built with that sort of flexibility in mind, and it's something we would expect to see in further WCCTC locations as well.
Great. Well, look, thank you for such a fast tour of this, Rustam. And while it was short, it was so great to get out on site and walk around. And the flexibility that you guys have described here and the lessons learned will really become templates, we hope, for really building out the rest of the dots, not just on the West Coast, but throughout the U.S. Thank you so much, Rustam Kocher, and also for Jonathan Yan joining us today from the Electric Island.
Of course.
Well, Alycia, sadly, look at what we've done. We've gone through another half hour, but boy, did we cover the waterfront today and clean transportation. All of us just had a great time bringing that to you. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be releasing a new Take 5 next week on August 27th at 11 a.m. Alycia and I will discuss key national goals and recent testimony that CalSTART gave to Congress on those issues. And of course, our next live CCTU broadcast will be on September 17th. But for now, for Alycia, Gilde, and the entire CCTU team, please stay safe, and we will CCTU soon.
This week, we want to shake things up. Bill, you recently had this incredible opportunity to provide testimony to the U.S. House of Representatives Select Committee on Climate Crisis. The topic, transportation investments for solving the climate crisis.